Welcome back to another episode. On today's episode, I'm going to go dive in a little bit more to the Bob Melvin interview on KNBR on Murph and Marcus in the morning and kind of talk about some of the points that he made in there, including the main takeaway that I think from the whole interview was that Bob Melvin was not ready to announce a starting shortstop yet. They both kind of mentioned Nick Ahmed's hot start and how he seemed to be almost written in pen by, depending on the media member, that he was going to be the starting shortstop in the last week and a half. Marco Luciano has really taken off and hit his stride a little bit. I think what it's going to come down to is it's going to really be the question of, are the Giants were they looking to see who just was the hottest player at spring, or were they truly looking to see see if Marco Luciano was just ready? And if he's ready, or if they think he's ready, are they just going to make him the starter regardless of how well Nick Ahmed played in spring training? So it's going to be kind of fascinating to see what it comes down to, kind of where their numbers currently stand. Now, keep in mind the first inning just is underway against Arizona as at the time of recording this. Luciano did strike out in the first, but all the numbers I have are from prior. So we're going to kind of go off of those. We'll see kind of what kind of game he ends up having, though, overall today. They do have him leading off to probably, let him get a few more at bats and keep showing what he's doing. But up to this point, Luciano has raised his average up to 250 with a 792 OPS. Now, mind you, I am counting the 1-for-1 against Oakland in the game that got rained out and got canceled. If you were to pull up his stats on MLB.com or any of those sites, it does not have that. But the way I look at it, it was against big league pitching. We saw it happen. I'm counting it. So he's at 250 with a 792 OPS. He has lowered his K percentage down to 29.7, which that's still high, but it's a small sample size. And when your first 20 at bats, you strike out 10 times, it's going to be a lot higher. Now, he's always going to have some swing and miss. The part that's kind of odd is he actually takes a lot of called third strikes, which I don't know if that's an approach issue where he's like looking to draw walks, or if he's just being too picky and he won't expand the zone with 2 strikes. But we'll see. If he does keep the strikeout percentage, if he can ever get that down to like 25%, a more reasonable number with his power, I have all the confidence in the world, barring health, that he'll be an excellent hitter, because it's pretty apparent that when he makes contact, it is loud contact and he hits the ball hard. So he just needs to keep the swing and miss a little bit down. Nick Ahmed's spring so far is 379 average with an 1176 OPS. He has started to slow down, and this is kind of where it gets interesting, because if you kind of look over just the very recent play, they're both kind of pointed in different directions at the moment. Marco Luciano, and for those of you that follow me on Twitter, I've been posting these kind of almost daily, because he's got this like running heater going where once he gets rolling, he plays really well. But Marco Luciano's last 27 plate appearances, he's 8 for 19 which is a 420 batting average. He has a home run, 2 doubles, 7 walks, a sac fly, 7 RBIs, and only 4 strikeouts. Now, obviously, he just struck out in the first, so make it 5 in his last 28, which is still a reasonable percentage. And he's also tacked on 2 stolen bases. In Nick Ahmed's last 10 plate appearances, he's 1 for 9 with a walk and an RBI and 4 strikeouts. So again, it's going to really be interesting. Like, are they just trying to see if Marco Luciano is ready or not? And I do think Nick Ahmed has basically locked up a spot on the roster. I just don't think that they're wanting to let him walk and then potentially end up in a situation where they have, Luciano and Fitz. And if Luciano gets hurt or falls on his face or whatever, they don't want to have no veteran presence that they can lean back, they can fall back on and lean on to kind of keep everything afloat. So I think Ahmed's pretty much a lock to be on the roster, but whether he starts or not, we'll see. And, as I've talked about in previous episodes, I've mentioned, I think it's either going to be Luciano and Ahmed or Ahmed and Fitzgerald. I think that's pretty set in stone in my mind on what is going to be on the roster. So, kind of where I would go, and, I like the fact that Luciano is showing he can hang with big league pitching. Um, I like where he's trending, and I like his upside significantly more. I don't care what Nick Ahmed hits in spring training personally, because we all have about a decade worth of evidence that Nick Ahmed is just not a good hitter. Like, it does not matter. No amount of bats this spring is going to change my mind there. Like, this is just the reality. Guys that are 34 years old and have never been better than like a 10% worse than league average hitter aren't just magically going to become, really good hitters. And, if he does, I will eat my words, and I'd love to be wrong there, but I just don't see it. So to me, it should really be coming down to, do they think Luciano's ready? Because if they think that answer is yes, then it shouldn't matter. You should just be starting him. You should be kicking Ahmed to the curb, especially if we're going to treat Patrick Bailey in a way where he can go hit a buck 20 or a buck 50 in spring training and just have no questions asked. He's ready. Then, like, I don't see how we can turn around and send a different message to Marco Luciano, who's been putting together way better at bats and way higher quality at bats this entire spring. So just kind of food for thought there. Now, kind of kicking over to the other things that he's talked about. The first thing was, he doesn't know when Blake Snell is going to be available. Even if he is available right away, he's going to probably be limited to a few innings. I don't think that's a shock, especially when you're a pitcher and you haven't been facing live hitters, other than in like simulated situations. There's not like no game action, doesn't have the adrenaline, any of that going. So even if he is available early, it's probably going to be in kind of short spurts out the gate. He did announce his opening series starting rotation, which is going to be Webb, Harrison, and Hicks against San Diego. Beyond that, there's some questions. Brought up Keaton Wynn, said that he might be available to be in the 4 or 5. He actually, Wynn pitched really well yesterday. He went 4 innings. One run, was really efficient. I think at one point he was like 19 pitches in for 3 innings. So super efficient there. And, he might be a guy that's on like a small pitch count and still gets you 5 innings with the way he's been throwing. So we'll kind of see there. Did mention that originally the timetable on Alex Cobb was going to be late May, early June, and he is way ahead of that timetable. Doesn't sound, he didn't make it sound like Cobb's going to be on the rotation out the gate, but he also sounds like, Cobb is like really close to being there. So, and he's going to get another look in the minors. So we'll kind of see what happens there. But he did mention that. And then the last thing, and this is a big one, is Austin Slater has had kind of a setback with his elbow that he had surgery on last October. And there's no guarantee that he's going to be ready to start the year. Now, how major and how, where that will leave Austin Slater, I think is the real question. You have kind of a couple options. Like, is he going to be, because he has been DHing in games, so he's still hitting, but it sounds like it might be when he's throwing, or, they're not letting him play the field because he's been coming out of games early because it's the discomfort. So I think it kind of begs the question, what do you do with him? Is it going to be a 10-day IL stint to start and maybe see if he recovers? The other option they have is they could potentially put him on the 60-day IL, which would open up a roster spot for him. Where, there's a couple guys that are non-roster invites that are pretty much guaranteed to be on the roster. You have guys like Dalton Jeffries that's probably played his way into a spot. Nick Ahmed has played his way into a spot. You have a few other like bullpen pieces. A guy like Landon Roop might end up making the team, or Mason Black, that you're going to need a 40-man spot for. So it almost makes a lot of sense. And then the flip side of that is it gives you an opportunity to have an extended look at Luis Matos. Now, they did ask the question, does this mean Matos would be on the roster? Which he said, if Slater can't go, like, he outright said Matos will be the guy. So, Matos is going to be on the roster in that situation. But he did say he's going to play against left-handed pitching, and then also said, all of our guys aren't going to play 162 games, including Jung-Hoo Lee. So it almost sounds like, he'll start against lefties and then he'll give the other guys days off. You all know where I stand. I think Matos should play every day, and I think that would be a perfect opportunity to let him play every day. But the vets are going to get their opportunities. And, right now, a guy like Mike Yastrzemski is just not hitting. And Michael Conforto is not like hitting the ball great. And he also looks really below average in left field, to put it nicely, defensively. So there's no saying that Matos couldn't play his way into an everyday job if given that opportunity. And that's really what it's going to come down to is Matos is going to just have to, take advantage of that opportunity and um, show what he can do in the time that he gets, which I mean, it stinks because I think with the young kids, they should be able to play every day to show that. But um, I still think there's a pathway for him getting like 4 starts a week or 5 starts a week if he's depending on how many left-handers they face. So, time will tell on that one, but that's those are kind of the big takeaways from that. For those of you that didn't hear it, the interview is on KNBR. If you just go under their podcast, you can find the Murph and Mac podcast, and it'll show. You can usually find it in the lineup, and there'll be a whole bunch of different interviews. You might have to scroll through it a little bit, but you'll find it in there. But I just wanted to kind of talk about this, and we'll kind of see how this last week goes. I think that shortstop competition is really something to keep an eye on, though. But as always, if you guys like the material and the content, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're up to like 325 or something like that subscribers. It's pretty cool. You guys have been supporting this a lot, and I appreciate it. I have fun interacting with all of you in the comments, including the select Dodger fans that seem to like to jump in there because I guess they get lost or something. So it's a lot of fun. I appreciate it. Tell me what your guys' thoughts are, and we'll be back probably tomorrow with a video on our weekly video that I've been doing on how everyone's doing down in spring training, and we'll talk more about it there. But until next time, go Giants, and we'll catch you all later.